Gentlemen, welcome back to shop. Today's video we will be changing the timing chain on the little Ford Bantam. Now don't let this fool you, this is a massive job. As you can see, our cam is still on top dead center position. I've taken off the top cam sprocket, taken out the chain. I'll show you now underneath. But what you need to remember on this is that this is really, guys, this is I think it would be easier to just take the engine out. I'm going to go through the sequence, and a big part of this is in a previous video where I changed the clutch plate, so I'm not going to go through the whole changing the clutch story, but you need to split the engine and gearbox, get the clutch plate off, get the flywheel off, because in order to get the oil pan off, there are two bolts that are sitting on this side of the backing plate, so there's no way of getting to it other than this is now the flywheel side of the engine. So to get these two bolts off, one over here and one over there, you have to take off the whole gearbox. So if you want to see the whole gearbox thing, look up here in the corner. I'll have a video for it there where I change the gearbox. Otherwise you don't get the oil pan off, and you need to get the oil pan off to get to these bolts. Where are we now? To get to these, this row of bolts over here. To get the oil pump off, once you've got the oil pump off, you can take off the timing sprocket on the main end, well, on the crankshaft. So once you've got the oil pan off, like I said, take off the gearbox, take off the clutch plate, take off the flywheel, take off that last two bolts on the oil pan, take off the oil pan, then you get to the front end side of the engine where you can take off the oil pump. Once the oil pump's off, you can get to the timing chain here at the bottom. I think we're going to go through putting back the timing chain right now. I'll show you how that's done. It's actually quite easy. Not a big thing to, well, you can make a mess of it, but not necessarily. If you're a bit awake, you will get it done easily. Okay, so the bottom sprocket that goes onto the crankshaft has got a keyway on the top and a little marker at the bottom. Can only fit in one way. Once you've got you have the crankset, you need the keyway to facing up. Then you know you on top dead center number 1. So you just slip on the little gear. Oh, no, before you do that, we need to get the tensioner and the guide in. Okay, so back in. Tensioner side.
Okay, so once we've got the guide and the tensioner on, we can put on the bottom sprocket. Only fits on one way. Pull up the chain. You might have to wiggle it a bit and see what works best for you. There we can see the indicator on the bottom sprocket lining up with the marked chain link, single marked chain link. On the top end there is 2 marked chain links, and the indicator on the top sprocket, the cam sprocket, just fits in right between the two of them, as you can see there. Get everything lined up. You can now take off the little piece of wire that you've had on the chain. And now just line everything up. Make sure that everything's, that's why keeping it in on top dead center helps a boatload. Here you can see I actually had it wrong, slipped the link on the bottom end. There I'm just dropping it down, pulling it back up. There we go, right on the money. Wiggle the cam a bit, and there it's on its place. It can't go any other way. Make sure that everything, all the markings are lined up and your timing is done. Now we can just put in the timing chain cam bolt. Come on, There we go. And then we need our little pulley tool again. And the cam sprocket bolt gets torqued to, let me just see here, 75 Newton meters. Once again, extra pair of hands helping out. Apologies for the bar in the foreground. And now we're just talking the tensioner. 40 Newton meters has got a boatload of thread on it. And now we can put back the valve cover. Valve cover gets a new gasket. Everything's drawn down into its place and then gets torqued to 6 Newton meters. Once that's done, we can start to fit the new oil pump. There is absolutely no place to work here. Make sure that you've got the gasket in the right place, get the bolts on, and get everything in its place. At this stage, nothing will line up because the pulley actually lines up the pump with the crankshaft. So at this stage, just get everything on. Don't tighten it too much. And then we can slip on the main pulley. Now the main pulley will center the oil pump with the crankshaft. As you can see, there's zero place to work. But once that's in, we can start drawing down the bolts and making sure everything's in place. The oil pump bolts get torqued to 20 Newton meters. And there we go. Now on to the next ones. Some you'll reach from the bottom, some you need to reach from the top. Absolute hassle, but nonetheless we got it done in the end. Okay, so once that's in place, we can fit the main pulley bolt. Uses a 19 spanner. So the nice thing is you can use the normal wrench. It gets torqued down to 125 Newton meters, so there's no chance of you over torquing it. And then we need our little pulley holder spanner thingy tool again, pulley tool again, and torque it down to 125 Newton meters. Tried to get the torque wrench in here, but the engine was hanging so skew that I couldn't get it in, so I had to come back at a later stage. I tried to jack it up and get it in place, but just couldn't get in there. If you decide to torque bolts at a later stage, make sure that you write them down or remember or mark them in some sort, that you come back to them and do not forget about them. Once we've got that done, we can move on to the oil pan. I've got the oil pan fitted back. The four corners of the oil pan gets a little bit of RTV gasket maker. It's actually in the service manual, just to seal up where the oil pump fits to the block on the one end and the main bearing fits to the block on the other end. It's a two-stage torque, so we're torquing them down to 6 Newton meters. And these are the two little bolts that actually made this whole job a hassle to at the back of the flywheel. In the blurred motion you can still see a little bit of RTV sticking out there. So they get torqued to 6 Newton meters. And once we've got that through, we can torque them all down to 9 Newton meters final torque. Like I said, everything's mated up and done, so that's a quick and easy one. You can see I'm still supporting the engine with a jack down at the bottom, so just keeping everything lined up.
So now that we've got the oil pan back on and everything torqued at the bottom, I haven't torqued the oil pump bolt. It's just to get the pulley seated. That basically what you're doing is you want to get the pulley, because the pulley is driving off the, now I must get my bearings there. Power is transferred through the crank onto the pulley, from the pulley back onto the oil pump. So if you've got your oil pump eccentric, you're going to wear out your oil pump. So what I do is I put the oil pump on, but I do not tighten the bolts completely. Then I put the main pulley on, so that centers the oil pump with the crankshaft. So once that's all centered, then you don't run this oil seal down. So once all that's done, then you can torque the oil pump bolts. They'll torque to 20 Newton meters.
And once that's all done, we can torque down the main bolt to 125 Newton meters using our little pulley tool again. There we go.
And install the idler pulley. Just make sure that it's running in the right direction.
And then we can start to fit the air conditioning pump bracket again. AC pump bracket, I think it's torqued to 25 Newton meters.
Alright gents, now we are back on the gearbox side, the passenger side of the little Bantam. As you can see, this is the backing plate on between the engine and the gearbox. That sits between the bell housing. As you can see, these two bolts are the last two bolts of the oil pan, and the flywheel will now go on top of it. There is no way on this earth that you will get the oil pan off without splitting the engine. Ford, I think that's pretty much the shittest idea that you've ever had. I don't know what the guys were thinking when they thought about it this way. So, or is that so that you cannot own your bucky and work on it yourself? Maybe leave a comment in the little thing below. Do you think, why do you think manufacturers do stuff like this? It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. 10-minute job just became a 2-day job, for that matter. Okay, so but enough ranting. Let's get on with it. I am going to fit the flywheel and the clutch back on. Once I've got the flywheel on, I'll have a chat with you guys.
So
again.
the flywheel gets fitted and torqued down to 67 Newton meters. It's a fine thread bolt. As always, make sure that you mate up the surfaces and start torquing it in a diagonal pattern, crisscross over each other. Just make sure that you lock up the flywheel, otherwise it's going to be a major hassle again. You just, with the torque wrench, you're just spinning the engine if you don't lock it up. There's a special tool, but I haven't got it, so I just wedged in a grabber.
Guys, if you're looking for a clutch video, I'm gonna skip this part here. I've done a video on replacing the clutch on this exact same bucket not too long ago. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna skip this one and I'll get you back there when we're done with it. I'll put a link up in the description and you can go and change your own clutch out. Okay, so our clutch and pressure plate's in and on its place. Next up, I need to wrestle the gearbox back in here. So let me get set up for that and then we can start with that one. Okay gentlemen, we've got the engine and gearbox back together. All the bell housing bolts torqued to 44 Newton meters. Engine mount on. Rear engine mount torqued to 30 Newton meters and the 3 studs to 70 Newton meters. There's one at the back as well. And the front engine mounts 30 Newton meters and 70 as well. Okay, so next up we'll be refitting the thermostat housing. Luckily I've marked them so I know which ones they are. Okay gentlemen, this is actually a very difficult video to make because there's no place to get camera angles in and so on. I did make the video previously where I took the whole engine apart to get the head out and replace that, so you can go back, I think it's 2 videos ago, but previous to this one. I am going to button up this engine. It's going to be the, what you can start doing is the fuel lines. Now I must go and check on the video because I don't remember which one is which. So it's always a good thing to make a video. I'm going to button up the engine, get all the electrics in place, get all the pipework in place, and I'll get you back here when this whole thing is in one piece again. I don't want to bore you guys with videos that are just the same as the previous one, so just go in the reverse order from taking it apart, putting it back together again, getting all the pipework on, all the fuel lines on. What will also happen off screen is I will bleed the clutch again. That you can see in a previous video where I did the clutch job. And let's get her back together and see if she'll run. Okay, next up we're fitting the exhaust manifold back in. These are the 2 studs that I broke off. Well, first of all I stripped them, then I broke them off when I took off the exhaust manifold. Got the new ones, had to go to OEM, and these 2 studs cost me the same OEM parts as the oil pump did, so not too happy about that, but it is what it is. Let's get everything back together again. Yes, I went and I checked the little divot section goes to the outside, so the connection is at the bottom. So just gonna put that in there. Gentlemen, I think we've got everything buttoned up here. Let's start off with what's happened since the last one. I had to, sorry guys for not filming everything. It's shown, everything that I've done is shown in the clutch job video, so like I said, go and check that one out. We've put on the fan belt cover, all the engine mounts are done, intake manifolds done, sensors done, fuel lines done, heat sensors done, throttle cables done, throttle position sensors done. I have put in the clutch hydraulic hose but that must still be bled. I'll do that tomorrow when I've got all the fluids. The ignition controller, that's also done. Just put the plug back on. There we go. So the ignition controller is on. I have not put in the, as you'll see, the plug leads are still open. I've not put in the plugs. I just want to crank it through without the plugs, without compression, just to get everything going and make sure that everything's in place. At the back we've done the exhaust manifold cover. Like you saw, the thermostat housing, gearbox, all the ground cables, engine mounts, battery cables, intake hose down at the bottom. Starter motor, engine mounts. The gearbox still needs oil. I haven't got oil for my gearbox, so that's part of why I'm not finishing up everything now. The gear selectors and what's that, anti-rollover or something mount, and all of the rest. I think we're done. All of the sensors are up and in, exhaust is on and in, and yeah. So sorry, this is not the best video that I've ever done. It's very difficult getting into everything and working with this machine in the bucky. I can tell you, if I have to do it again, I will go and buy a engine stand and pull the engine and gearbox from the out from the way-go, and then work on it and then put it back in. It's going to be much easier. But if you've made it thus far, thanks for watching. As always, please rate, comment, subscribe, and as always, stay safe. Pros and cons of doing the timing chain on the ROCAM. You will not get to the timing chain bottom end if you do not split the engine and gearbox, which is a major hassle. It's you're taking the gearbox off of the engine, basically clutch job plus. So keep that in mind. That is a real mess and a real hassle. Other than that, the timing's easy and done. Took a bit longer than it should, but nonetheless, we're done now.
And now we need to clean up this mess.